Hello, welcome back to another video, and today I'm going to be taking a look at the new Anemo DPS coming in patch 5.2 of Genshin Impact, CHASCA. Her kit has just been leaked, and I'm going to take a full look at it, giving full detail on how she works, how you would like to pre-farm for her, and so much more. Now, without further ado, let's get right into it, starting with her base stats. Her essential stat will be crit rate at 19.2%. Now, this indicates that she is going to have some good amount of crit rate to help alleviate the amount of crit rate that you would like to farm for her, especially the kind of set that you would like to give her. CHASCA is a Nemo, and she is a bow user. Moving on to her skill set, starting with her normal attack, Phantom Feather Flurry. It's pretty much the same normal charge attack for a bow user, but her charge attack just deals Anemo damage. Moving on to her elemental skill, Spirit Range Shadow Hunt. CHASCA and the will residing in her weapon resonate, dealing nice soul aligned AoE Anemo damage. After using the skill, CHASCA gains 80 nice soul points and enters a nice soul blessing state. CHASCA's nice soul blessing state continually consumes nice soul points. When nice soul points are fully depleted or the skill is used again, CHASCA's nice soul blessing state will end. Her nice soul blessing has the following traits: Mount, Soul Sniper, Ritual, Staff, increasing CHASCA's movement speed and interruption resistance. In this state, CHASCA will continually consume nice soul points and stay airborne. When sprinting or increasing height, extra nice soul points will be consumed. Her Nightfall Blessing state has two different multi-target firing modes, tap and hold. The tap deals nice soul aligned Anemo damage to opponents in front. This damage is considered normal attack damage. Holding enters aiming mode, loading bullets into the cylinder's chambers and choosing a certain amount of opponents within a certain range, before firing up to 6 Shadow Hunt shells at the selected opponents based on the amount of time the attack was charged. After holding for a certain amount of time, CHASCA will finish loading the magazine and directly fire X Shadow Hunt shells at the selected opponents. Shadow Hunt shells deals nice soul aligned Anemo damage, which is considered charge attack damage. The 4th, 5th, and 6th shells will undergo elemental conversion based on the elemental types of the other characters in the party. For each Pyro, Hydro, Cryo, or Electro character in the party, one Shadow Hunt shell will be converted into a Shining Shadow Hunt shell with the corresponding elemental type, dealing nice soul aligned damage corresponding to that elemental type. This damage is considered charge attack damage. The last Shadow Hunt shell loaded into the cylinder is fired first. Okay, so if you watched the leaked gameplay of CHASCA, when I first saw it, I was like, what the f is this character? I was surprised at like how crazy detail that they put into her skill animations, making it look so unique and cool looking. So to sum up, her elemental skill, it's basically the same as Wanderer's skill, where she can fly up in the air and she can attack enemies by either tapping to deal Anemo damage or by holding to take aiming mode, lock onto enemies, load up a certain amount of bullets, and attacking them with many other bullets, where some of them can deal other elemental type damage other than Anemo, which is very interesting. Because if that's the case, she can deal a lot of elemental reactions just by her skill alone, which will be interesting on the kind of rotations that you would like to deal with her and the certain team combos that you would like to play with her. The skill attributes at level 10, her activation damage is 108%, multi-aim press damage is 64, Shadow Hunt shell damage is 109, and Shining Shadow Hunt shell damage is 345, which is the elemental conversion bullets that she deals. And the cooldown of her elemental skill is 6.5 seconds. And moving on to her elemental burst, Soul Reaper's Fatal Round. CHASCA concentrates her will, firing a single gas splitting Soul Reaper shell that deals nice soul aligned AoE Anemo damage. Afterward, the shell will split into 6 Soul Reaper shells which attack nearby opponents. Soul Reaper shells deals nice soul aligned Anemo damage. For each Pyro, Hydro, Cryo, or Electro character in the party, 2 Soul Reaper shells will undergo elemental conversion to become Radiant Soul Reaper shells, which deal nice soul aligned elemental damage of the corresponding elemental type. So basically the same as the elemental skill, but this is elemental burst damage. The Gale Splitting Soul Reaper Shell damage at level 10 deals 158%, Soul Reaper Shell damage deals 186%, and Radiant Soul Reaper Shell damage deals 372%. The cooldown of the elemental burst is 15 seconds, and the energy cost is 60, which is very low. So overall, her kit seems basically simple, not really anything out of the ordinary, just that her skill has a crazy unique mechanic compared to like Wanderer, where Wanderer mainly deals Anemo damage, where in her kit, she's able to deal elemental damage of the elemental types of your party members, which is actually very unique for an Anemo character. Moving on to her passives, Bullet Trick. When the elemental skill Spirit Range Shadow Hunt multi-target fire is used, if the party has 1, 2, 3 types of Pyro, Hydro, Cryo, or Electro characters, then there is a 33, 67, 100% chance to trigger Spirit Binding Conversion, causing the third Shadow Hunt shell loaded into the cylinder to be converted into a shining Shadow Hunt shell of the corresponding elemental type. So basically, this will allow you to have 4 bullets that can deal elemental type damage based on your party member's elemental type, instead of the 4th, 5th, and 6th shell undergoing elemental conversion. Her second passive, Intent to Cover. When a nearby party member triggers a Niso burst, CHASCA will fire a burning Shadowhunt shot at a nearby opponent, dealing Niso online Anemo damage equal to 150% of the Shadowhunt shell damage from her elemental skill. If the party has Pyro, Hydro, Cryo, or Electro characters, the burning Shadowhunt shot will be converted to deal Niso online elemental damage of the corresponding elemental type, equivalent to 150% of the damage dealt by her elemental skill set. The damage done in this way is considered charge attack damage. And then her third passive is mainly just traversal in the open world. And now moving on to her constellations, if you are interested in pulling multiple copies of her first one, Cylinder the Redless Roulette. When triggering the passive talent Bullet Trick, Spirit Binding Conversion will additionally cause the second Shadowhunt shell loaded into the cylinder to be converted into a shining Shadowhunt shell. In addition, the chance to trigger Spirit Binding Conversion is increased if the party has 1 to 2, 3 types of the elemental types of characters. Then there is a 67 to 100% chance to trigger Spirit Binding Conversion. You must unlock the passive talent Bullet Trick. In addition, CHASCA Niso point consumption is decreased by 30%, which is very nice. So her C1 is pretty nice. It does make it easier to get the conversion much more consistent, but I don't think it's that massive. It's not really like a damage increase, it just makes you be able to deal another conversion shot, which is nice, but I wouldn't really say it's that crazy. For C2, Muzzle the Searing Smoke. When the Shadowhunt shells from her elemental skill hits opponent, they will deal AoE elemental damage of the corresponding elemental type of the Shadowhunt shells, equal to 400% of CHASCA's attack. This effect can be triggered once each time CHASCA uses multi-target fire. Okay, so now your C2 allows her Shadowhunt shells to deal AoE damage. I don't know how big the AoE is, which makes it kind of difficult to imagine how good this will be. The only thing this does that I can tell is that it deals a lot more damage. I mean, equal to 400% of her attack. The main thing is to know how much AoE it increases. I would assume it's single target, but if it's AoE, like how big of an AoE is this really increasing? It sounds nice, but I will have to see how big the AoE is to fully tell if the C2's actually good on paper or actually good in game. Her C4 Sparks the Sun Shot. When the Radiant Soul Reaper shells from her elemental burst hits opponent, they will restore 1.5 elemental energy to CHASCA and deal AoE elemental damage of the corresponding elemental type of the Radiant Soul Reaper shells equal to 400% of CHASCA's attack. This effect can be triggered once each time CHASCA uses her elemental burst. Okay, so basically this is the same thing as her C2. So what? Nothing different, just the same thing for her elemental burst, I guess. Showdown, the Glory of Battle. After the passive talent Bullet Trick Spirit Binding Conversion is triggered, CHASCA will gain the Fatal Wound state for the next 3 seconds. The next time CHASCA uses her elemental skill, the shots will instant finish charging and the crit damage of that instance of the multi-target fire increases by 120%. This is another constellation that sounds good on paper, but I don't know how fast it takes to charge her elemental skill shots. The only thing is that like it deals 120% crit damage, which is very nice and very, you know, well known for a C6, but like the fact that it instant reloads makes it sound nice, makes it sound appealing, but like I will have to know how fast the bullets charge in their chamber. From what I remember watching the footage, I don't think it takes that long, but it's a C6, you know, the main thing is that it deals a lot more damage, and I guess it slightly makes it faster to deal the damage. But yeah, very interesting C6, nothing that wild. But if I have to say, the appeal of her constellations, I don't think any of them are that appealing. Unless you just want the more increased damage from her C2 and C4 for her entire skill set. I just think it's kind of weird that her C2 and C4 are basically the same. It's just once for her skill, once for her elemental burst. And lastly, let's take a look at her 5-star signature weapon, which is a 5-star bow. The main stat of her bow is crit damage at 66.2%. The passive of her bow, the moon ring sighted. When a character triggers swirl, their attack is increased by 24% for 12 seconds. When the party contains 1 or 2 or more characters of a different elemental type from the equipping character, said equipping character's charge attack damage increases by 20 to 48% and the elemental burst damage increases by 10 to 24%. Pretty nice passive for her 5-star weapon. I definitely think it's pretty suited for her. I mean, it just gives you charge attack and elemental burst damage just like that by having different elemental type characters in your party. And it gets her attack by triggering a swirl, so I think this 5-star weapon is actually pretty damn good. And now, after looking at her entire kit, her constellations, her 5-star signature, how would you like to pre-farm for her if you would like to start farming today? In terms of the artifacts that you would like to farm for her, you definitely want to give her Obsidian Codex, because it's basically suited for her. She consumes nice soul points, more damage dealt, and 40% crit rate, where if you were to take into account her essential stats, this being 40, you will basically have at least like 70 crit rate already. And if you were to give her signature, you would get her a lot more crit damage, which is the main stat you want to mainly focus farming in terms of her substats. For other sets, I don't think there's any other one other than if you want to give her VV, that's okay as well, but it's not really that better than like Obsidian. You can use Wanderer's Trope if you want to increase her charge attack damage, but she doesn't really use Elemental Mastery that much. I know some people are gonna say, what about Shimenawa's? Yes, but like I feel like you would like to utilize her Elemental Burst. Even though it is a 60% energy cost, I still think you would like to have some energy, so I wouldn't really recommend Shimenawa's, even though Shimenawa's is pretty good at Wanderer and CHASCA is basically Wanderer but better, so I would assume that Shimenawa's will work on CHASCA pretty similarly, but I still wouldn't recommend farming this set while we have Obsidian to farm for. Desert Pavilion can also work as well, but the domain it's in, I wouldn't really go for this set either, so just farm Obsidian because it gives you a lot of crit rate. But in case you do have a lot of crit rate, if you were to say have good pieces with crit rate on them, the only other set that I would personally recommend, if I have to go with one that's not Obsidian, I will go with Shimenawa's or Pavilion, whichever one you have good pieces on. But if you haven't started farming, definitely go for Obsidian. And for substats, just go for crit damage, attack, and if you can, get some ER to utilize her elemental burst. And that is my kit analysis on CHASCA. Thank you guys so much for watching. I think she's gonna be one hell of a character to play with. She looks super cool, super fun if you watch the leaked gameplay of CHASCA. I cannot wait for her release. I cannot wait to start pre-firing for her today. And yeah, that's gonna be it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video and want to see more content like this, then definitely leave a like on the video to support it. Subscribe to the channel for more content, and I catch you guys in the next one. Peace.